I love people who love Travis Kelce, like Wes, but he is not number one. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know where you stood, Jordan, but he is not number one.
No.
I kind of looked at the all-time tight ends, and I was thinking he landed about seventh, eighth, somewhere in there right now, which is still incredibly high for a guy who's just turning in his early 30s. I think he's turning 32 this fall.
Yep.
And when you consider tight ends, like you saw Tony G play till he was like 38, Jason Witten 38, Antonio Gates around that too. It's just like he'll probably be playing for a lot longer. But his volume stats are worse than I think about 9 tight ends all time. His volume stats are worse than Gronk, by the way, right now, who I would definitely put ahead of him because of that. Because I think you're talking about Gronk versus Kelce. Kelce has to outpace him in volume stats for their careers for him to be ahead of him. And right now he's not. So I think he's around number 7, 8 right now, which I think if he retired today, I actually do think he would make the Hall of Fame. He literally last year cemented it for him, getting the single season record, getting the volume stats up to being comparable to other Hall of Fame tight ends. And just from here on, it's like more cementing, maybe getting him a first ballot induction. But as of now, he's not really close to, especially tight ends like Tony G, who is literally double his career stats. Um, and even Antonio Gates, who's really far up there too. So I like Travis Kelce. I love him actually, but I just don't think he's there yet.
Yeah, man, it's tough. I didn't have him number one. Spoiler, he's still behind Tony G, Shannon Sharp, Jason
Shannon
Witten,
Sharp,
like
yeah,
maybe Kellen Winslow, Gronk. Like there are guys that he's behind. He has maybe a weak case for being top five, like at number five. Like you could probably somehow
sure.
make the argument for that. He got going a little bit too late. He's going to have to remain elite for several more years. He has the 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He can retire in the top 3 or 5 in almost all major tight end categories. So I think it's the player that I comped it to, and people listening are not going to like this. Aaron Rodgers, like the situation where the talent is undeniable and you watch them at their peak, you're like, no one's better than this guy, obviously. But then the totality may not exist. Like Rodgers sat for a little bit. He had a couple seasons where either the team wasn't winning, he wasn't healthy, stuff like that. He didn't play particularly great. Everyone thought he was washed at one point. He obviously kind of pushed that to the side, where you can't call him the GOAT, where like Travis Kelce retires and he's like third in this, second in this, sixth in this. People are going to say, oh, well, he can't be the best ever. But I'm like, you had to be there. And that's the thing with Travis Kelce. You had to be there to watch him play. You watch him, he's like a wide receiver at tight end, but he will also run you over and go through you, and he can block. Like, I don't know. When he retires, like assuming he finishes his career on a trajectory that's like normal or whatever for a guy like that, he'd probably be my number one. Tony G, like that's going to always be there in terms of the longevity and everything, and that's going to be there with Travis Kelce too. But you watch the dude in his prime, and you're like, it's unlike anything I've seen. And maybe I just haven't seen old time tight ends or quote unquote old time like a Shannon Sharp. But Gronk has been injured, he retired. Like it's one of those things, longevity is needs to be taken into account, and Kelsey's going to have to deal with that. He's just now like building that case at 31 to be one of those all-time great. Speaking of which, we're going to have an article coming out on arrowheadreport.com that says something along the lines of Travis Kelsey's already a Hall of Famer. So check that out. Taylor Witt doing a great job with that. So, man, he's definitely not number one. He's not number two. He's not number three, not number four. He's somewhere between like 5 and 7 for me, I think. And that's not a bad place for a guy that still has a ton of time left. Like we talk about Mahomes and people say, oh, Mahomes is the GOAT. Well, he could literally retire tomorrow and wouldn't be the GOAT. Like you have to see how these guys finish their careers. Like I almost feel like these conversations in sports shouldn't be had until the career is over. Like even
Yeah,
LeBron,
I
you
get that.
can't have these conversations until you can step back and take a look at the totality of the career.
Yeah, and I think especially with Kelce, who you would assume if I think he plays a style of football to where he can last, which is he doesn't take big hits, kind of like Gronk and Kittle do.
Yeah.
But you would assume he has like 6 years left, which playing with Mahomes, you don't know what those could be elite years. So there's a reason the Chiefs really want to manage his snaps now as he heads into 30s. So it'll be hard to say. Well, like you said, we have to see kind of where he lands because, and people always will now be like saying, well, he played in a different style era of football. Also, he's going to be playing a large portion of his career in the 17 game era of football,
Yeah.
Which is going to warp so many discussions about this, especially because people use volume stats for about half of these discussions. So it's hard to say. I can say right now he is not already number one, which was the second part of that. He could get there. Like, what if he pulls a Tom Brady and plays till he's like 40? It's possible for a tight end to do that. It's hard for them to. Even Tony G didn't play until he was 40. So I think he can get there. He's not there, but I do think, and I wrote this article last year, and it's even more true this year after he broke the records. No, I wrote it during the year. I think he's already the number one Chiefs tight end of all time. I think he's passed Tony G. Even though Tony G has a bit more volume stats as a Chief, Kelce has more big plays. He has just better efficiency overall. He has a Super Bowl ring that he was a big part of. So I think he's passed Tony G on the Chiefs because Tony G had like 6,000 yards with the Falcons. So he's at least number one on the Chiefs, and we'll just see where he goes from there.
Yeah, and it's not a bad spot to be in for sure. And he's so technically sound. Like, he has the little nuances in his routes that even when the athleticism fades a little bit, I think he'll still be able to, he'll kind of switch like a bully ball type thing where he'll just overpower people instead of being the finesse. He talks about the basketball background kind of helping him out. Like, he's going to be fine. He can still get open. He'll always be able to get open. He'll play as long as he wants to. I think like the NFL will always be something that he can be better than 99% of his peers at. Like, he'll be a top guy for a long time. Not like a Jason Witten where one day he just can't move and is like super stiff. I don't see Kelce ever being that, or I think he would leave before he did. But man, he's one of the best ever already. 31 years old. He's had years where he had the 5 touchdown year, the 5 touchdown year after that. Like, it's not like he has had this extremely long career already. It seems like he's just now hitting like the midpoint of that maybe. So he's got an entire back 9 to play on his NFL career. And I feel like they're going to be good ones. Like, I feel like the second act is going to be just as good as the first one, considering he's in the middle of that right now. Maybe has 3 more 1,000-yard seasons. I think that's definitely, I don't want to assume it, but I think that's going to happen. With health and all that stuff, and the 17-game season's going to help. I can just never envision a world where Travis Kelce's like under 35 and isn't wrecking the NFL. And I know this year he'll turn 32, next year 33. So he only has a few more of those seasons left. But even old man Travis Kelce, I think, could still bust up like most of the NFL just because he's so big, he's so fast. Even when that speed goes away, he's still going to be a good player.